All right, we are back with our sports maven, a six-time Connecticut Sportscaster of the Year, WTIC Radio, Scott Gray, and now the Valley Press columnist, right?
Yes.
So UConn, let's get right into it. Let's talk about this collapse, because when you have a collapse like this, it speaks to leadership, and there's no two ways about it, whether you talk about on the floor or on the bench. Let's start with the floor. The seniors, Jerome Dyson, Stanley Robinson. What happened? Because these guys just took a powder.
Well, I think the first senior you really should talk about is Gavin Edwards. Here's a guy who was used sparingly for his first 3 years. They really needed somebody to step up on the front line and with experience, and I thought Gavin did a very good job this season. But certainly he wasn't the guy that you would be looking to for leadership. That had to fall on Stanley Robinson and Jerome Dyson.
What happened with those guys?
You know what? I'll tell you what, Stan. I watch these games, and I'm thinking to myself, there is something wrong with Stanley Robinson. A year ago, I'm looking at this guy as the next Rip Hamilton. I mean, maybe a step below Rip Hamilton. I mean, we're talking the level of an NBA All-Star here. But he definitely was playing like that. And here, 3 years ago, he fell out of favor with Jim Calhoun. He had maturity problems. He had personal problems. Jim just took away his scholarship, threw him off the team, and he spent a year in the real world trying to get his life in order, and he did. And he came back and had a great season last year, probably played himself up to at least a second-round NBA draft pick, and in the second half of this season, he has played his way out of that. And, you know, and when you watch that happening, you're saying, what's wrong? What's wrong? And there definitely is something wrong. Yeah. And I can't put my finger on it. I don't know.
Both these guys, right? How about Mr.
With
Dyson?
both of these guys. Maybe the pressure was too much for them. Maybe, you know, Jim Calhoun has a way of coaching. And you look at some of his players who have succeeded, and we're talking strong players, not just physically, but mentally strong, mentally tough players, like Rip Hamilton, like Ray Allen, like Emeka Okafor. You challenge these guys, you throw down the gauntlet in front of them, they're going to stand there and stare you in the eye and say, okay, that's what you want me to do? I'll do it.
How about this, if I throw out? Kemba Walker became clear to me near the end of the year.
Right.
It became his team.
Right.
Now, to what degree internally, when it becomes a junior's team, he's going to be a junior next year,
He's going to be a junior next year.
To what degree did that cause some concern, him taking over where it clearly became his team and not Stanley Robinson, not Jerome Dyson? Could that have caused some friction?
Maybe, but I think maybe Robinson and Dyson just weren't the mental, emotional makeup of the guys that we mentioned earlier, and maybe they weren't capable of responding to the Jim Calhoun style of coaching.
Well, did Jim Calhoun lose these guys? Because when you say not responding, it's 4 years now. They should know how he is. Did he lose these guys?
Well, you know, maybe he did a little bit. Maybe he did lose them a little bit. Maybe that was part of the problem. But definitely watching them play, and again, particularly Stanley Robinson, I'm saying to myself, there is something wrong here. There's something going on that we don't know about. And as far as Kemba Walker, yeah, he could become the team leader. Maybe it is his team now. But the thing is, he's got to be, for it to be his team, he's got to be more of a stabilizing influence. And right now he's not, because he's not consistent enough.
In order to lead, someone has to follow you, right?
Right, absolutely. And he's just not consistent enough now. You want him to be the veteran leader, but he still falls back into so many young player traps.
Jim Calhoun's got to be banging his head saying, why now? At a time when he'd be plotting how he wants to leave, he's got to think about, gee, do I have to hang on longer to put this thing back in shape?
Well, you know, we talked about how fragile it was. You go to the Final Four last year. You don't even go to the NCAA tournament this year. They could turn it around next year. He's got two kids that I saw play in prep school because they went to prep school in New Hampshire, Alex Oriaki, Jamal Coombs McDaniel, and both of these kids were very impressive. Unless both Jim Calhoun's eye and my eye for upcoming talent both went at the same time, I still think all these kids are looking for is their comfort level against this talent level.
45 seconds. Yeah. If you're Jim Calhoun, though, you know that in order to build this team back, you're at the Final Four last year, you know you have to build a program. It takes patience. It takes perseverance. Is that window there for him? Does he have, you have to look ahead and say, putting it back together next year is tough. It's going to take a few years to build that. Those are the thoughts he has to have now. Do I have the energy and the desire to build this thing over the next 3 or 4 years? Not a quick fix.
The contract is still on the table, hasn't been signed yet. A lot of reports were circulating around the Big East tournament that he is going to retire after this season. I had a long talk with someone very, very close to Jim Calhoun, who's been very close to him since before he even came to UConn. And when I asked him, he said, you know, and he was very sincere, genuinely, I don't know. But if he asked me, if it was my decision, I would say it's time to get out.
All right. I'll segue real quick. Okay. Allen Iverson. Mm-hmm. Allen Iverson. Here's a guy who played 13 years in the NBA and made $200 million. His life is unraveling, gambling problems, alleged alcohol problems, divorce brewing, injury issues. Here's a guy they're very concerned about from a overall mental state, whether he's going to be okay in the next few years, but his whole life is just unraveling. Quick thoughts.
Well, because his whole life has really been basketball, and particularly the NBA, and anything good in his life has been based on what he's done in basketball, and he's all done there. I mean, the last time around, the Sixers were the only team willing to give him a chance. His daughter was ailing. He says, I'm going to have to take a leave of absence. Well, that's fine, but if you take a leave of absence to be with your daughter, everybody understands that. Nobody has a problem with that, but don't turn up in a nightclub in Georgia on a Saturday night.
But you want to also hope real quick, after 13 years, you've put some money away.
You would hope that he's got himself in a position where he can take care of himself for the rest of his life.
All right, he's Scott Gray. When we return, folks, we'll talk to one of the most powerful people in Connecticut. I call him Mr. Electricity. You'll find out who he is. Don't go away.